Yesterday, the internet genuinely lost its mind over the SpaceX IPO. Finance Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, everywhere you looked, people were just screaming, "Biggest IPO ever, the future of humanity, don't miss this, Mars economy." Mate, some people were talking about SpaceX like it's a religion. And honestly, that's why this IPO is starting to make me uncomfortable. Because underneath all the hype, all the rockets, all the Mars talk, you gotta understand something, brothers. This is still the stock market, and it bites hard. And eventually, the stock market stops caring about daydreams. It starts caring about numbers like a maths teacher. And after looking deeper into this IPO filing, I think there are things retail investors are not paying enough attention to. Not because SpaceX is a terrible company. That's what makes this so weird. Because SpaceX might genuinely become one of the most important companies ever built, while also becoming one of the most dangerous IPOs retail investors have seen in years. And I'll be very truthful with you guys. The deeper I looked into this filing, the stranger this whole thing started feeling. Most people buying this IPO aren't buying a business. They're buying a feeling, the feel-good factor. You know what I mean? Belief in Elon Musk. Belief in Mars. Belief that this company is going to rewrite civilization itself. And I understand why. Because SpaceX has already done things people genuinely thought were impossible. Reusable rockets, people dismissed it. Landing boosters vertically, people laughed again. Global satellite internet, people thought it sounded insane. So, investors start connecting the dots. Every time people doubted him, he was right. So maybe this Mars thing, maybe the rest of it, maybe he's right again. That logic isn't crazy, but it is dangerous. Because the moment investing becomes emotional, people stop asking hard questions, and you can already see it. I'm seeing this all around me. But actually, when people I speak to who are into trading, not my school friends obviously, people who couldn't explain a price to earnings ratio 2 weeks ago are now confidently discussing asteroid mining economics. That's not research, that's narrative addiction. And SpaceX has built one of the most powerful narratives on planet Earth. And here's where it gets interesting. Because while everyone online was screaming, "Buy SpaceX!", some investors were quietly reading the actual filing. And the filing reveals something people aren't really discussing. SpaceX isn't one business. It's several businesses bundled together, like the mildew of companies. Each one at a completely different stage. Starlink, genuinely impressive. Fast subscriber growth, strong margins, real revenue. A business that could probably go public on its own tomorrow, and people would throw rent money at it without hesitation. But then there's everything else. The launch business carries costs that most people aren't modeling properly. The AI ambitions are priced in before they've produced anything real. And the Mars stuff? The filing is honest about this in ways the internet isn't. It's long-term, it's expensive, it's unproven at commercial scale, which means what you're actually buying is just a bundle. Some of it real, some of it projected, some of it a pure daydream. And the valuation doesn't really cleanly separate those things. That's not necessarily fraud. That's just how hype-era IPOs work. But retail investors tend to price the bundle as if every part of it is Starlink itself. Here's the uncomfortable part nobody really wants to say out loud. SpaceX doesn't feel like a normal corporation. It feels like a personality trait of one man. He is the man though. The company's identity is Elon Musk. His obsession, his timelines, his ability to make people believe the impossible is inevitable. We already saw what happens when that narrative wobbles with Tesla. The second investors thought Elon was distracted, the stock reacted. Not because the cars got worse, not because the revenue collapsed, but because the story felt less certain. Now, that tells you something important about what investors are actually buying. And with SpaceX, that dependency feels even deeper. Because at least Tesla makes a product millions of people own and drive. SpaceX's most important promises, Mars, interplanetary civilizations, rewriting humanity's future, those are still entirely Elon's vision. So, what happens to the stock if the vision becomes his alone? What happens if the narrative cracks? Now, I'm not predicting that per se, but I think it's a question worth sitting with you before you invest. Now, here's the thing about this IPO that genuinely worries me. It's not one type of hype, it's every type of hype stacked on top of each other. AI hype, space hype, Elon hype, retail FOMO, social media tribalism, future of humanity storytelling, all in one, like the Tungsten Cube of hype. And when that many narratives collide into one another, something strange happens to how people think about risk. Risk stops feeling real because the story is so big that normal concerns start sounding small. Yeah, but Mars and retail investors have changed. Nobody wants 8% annually anymore. People want the next Tesla, the next Nvidia, the next life-changing stock. The fear isn't losing money anymore. The fear is missing the moment. That fear is powerful, and social media makes it louder. And IPO hype turns into something closer to panic. By the time normal investors get access to this stock, institutions have already positioned. Insiders have already priced their exit. The hype has peaked in the news cycle already. Retail arrives last. That's not cynicism. That's just how these cycles have worked repeatedly for years on end. And look, maybe SpaceX becomes one of the greatest investments ever made. I'm not ruling that out before I see it happen. But it's a question I keep coming back to after reading this filing. A great company and a great investment are not the same thing. They can be, sometimes they are. But hype creates a gap between what something is and what people are paying for it. And when enough people become emotionally attached to a stock, that gap slowly stops being visible until one day it isn't visible anymore. So before any retail investors put real money into this IPO, I think there's one honest question worth asking yourself. Are you investing in a business? Are you investing in a dream? Because the stock market will eventually answer that question for you. It always does.